Why did Renaissance cardinals seal away a being with wings of light? Why were the catacombs beneath St. Peter's Basilica inscribed not with prayers, but with warnings? And why did a faithful priest risk everything to uncover a truth so dangerous that the Church has buried it for centuries? Welcome to Celestial Chronicles, where ancient legends, forgotten horrors, and supernatural wars come to life. If you love exploring the untold side of mythology, you've found your new obsession. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and tap the bell below so you never miss another legendary story. Father Antonio's footsteps echoed softly through the marble halls of the Vatican Library, long after midnight. The air was thick with the scent of aged parchment and candle wax. The silence itself was a whisper. He had been cataloguing a collection of Renaissance-era letters when one brittle page caught his eye. A faded Latin script contained an ominous phrase, Angelus subterum, angel beneath the earth. Antonio's heart quickened. An angel beneath the Vatican? The idea was at once absurd and enthralling. The letter, bearing the seal of a 16th century cardinal, alluded to something beneath St. Peter's Basilica, sealed away in darkness. Antonio's training urged caution. He knew the Vatican's history was layered with myth, yet a gnawing curiosity tugged at him. What could possibly lie hidden below the Apostles' tomb? A memory surfaced, sharp as a sudden chill. Years ago, on the eve of his retirement, Monsignor Vincenzi had gripped Antonio's shoulder, uttering words that had haunted him ever since. "If you knew what I know, you would never sleep again." At the time, Antonio dismissed it as the rambling of age. Now he wasn't so sure. Vincenzi had hinted at hidden truths guarded by the Church, secrets beneath even the Pope's understanding. Could this be what the old Monsignor feared? The warning, instead of dissuading him, only sharpened Antonio's resolve. He had to find out. Noticing the late hour, Antonio slipped the fragile letter into his leather folio, extinguished his lamp, and exited the library in silence. To past the frescoed gallery of maps, he felt the painted saint's eyes follow him with a silent warning. Then he heard it, a faint, reverberating murmur that did not belong to any living soul at this hour. It sounded like distant chanting, or was it weeping? The hair on his neck bristled. The soft whispered sound seemed to rise from beneath his feet. Compelled by dread and curiosity, Antonio followed the sound down an unfamiliar stairway. The steps led to the grotto beneath the basilica, where popes were entombed and ancient altars slumbered in darkness. The farther he descended, the clearer the whisper became, a litany in a tongue he didn't recognize. Ancient, a melody of syllables tugging at the very marrow of his bones. At the foot of the staircase, a heavy iron gate barred his way. Beyond it stretched an unlit corridor that his weak lamplight could barely penetrate. The chanting had stopped. Only a profound silence remained, as if the very stones were holding their breath. "Hello?" he called softly, his voice swallowed by the abyssal quiet. No reply, only the echo of his single word returning. Have I imagined it all? He wondered. His rational mind urged him to turn back. But as he reluctantly ascended, Antonio's thoughts returned to angel beneath the earth. Could the two phenomena be connected? A bizarre phrase and a haunting chant from the depths. Coincidence, or the first drops of a coming storm? At first light, Father Antonio returned to the letter. Translating the archaic Latin, he uncovered a chilling account. During renovations in 1578, workers broke into an impossibly old crypt beneath the basilica's foundation. Inside, they glimpsed bones of inhuman size, a pagan altar older than Rome itself, and the visage of a winged radiant figure before hastily resealing the vault. One passage chilled Antonio's blood. "The radiant one shall remain bound in darkness until the trumpet of the end be sounded. Tell no soul of this blasphemy, lest panic rend the faithful." A shadow fell across his desk. Antonio startled, looking up to meet the searching gaze of Cardinal Salvati, prefect of the archives. "You look troubled, Father," Salvati said calmly. And Antonio, flustered, tried to conceal the letter. Salvati's dark eyes lingered on him. "Do not lose yourself in old shadows, son," the cardinal advised. Sometimes it is best to leave ancient things in peace. With that he turned and departed, his red robes whispering over marble. Antonio exhaled, knowing it was a gentle rebuke, but a warning nonetheless. That evening, after complying, Father Antonio slipped down to the Basilica's crypt levels under the pretext of prayer. He intended to search for any hidden vault matching the letter's description. Past the softly lit tombs and chapels, deeper into the unlit catacomb beyond official tour routes, he found it. Behind a niche of a martyr's gravestone hung a moldering tapestry of the keys of St. Peter. Antonio drew it aside. Behind lay a narrow passage and a rough-hewn stone door marked with a faded red cross. He tugged at the heavy iron padlock. The corroded metal crumbled at his touch and fell with a muffled clang. He froze, but only silence answered. Swallowing his nerves, he pushed the stone door open. It groaned inward, exhaling a breath of stale air. Antonio raised his candle and crossed himself as he stepped into the forbidden vault. The chamber was small and circular, carved from the bedrock. By the flickering light, Antonio saw walls covered in strange inscriptions, Latin and Greek, intertwined with an older script he didn't recognize. The center stood a low altar of black granite, upon which rested a bronze mask shaped like a serene angelic face, green with age. Antonio's throat tightened. The mask's gentle smile and blank eyes gave it an uncanny grace. He gently lifted the bronze mask. It was heavy, and along its inner rim he found Latin words engraved. A clavis, a key of the abyss, accompanied by Greek letters and strange sigils. A chill crawled up his spine as he realized he stood where those 16th century priests had performed rites to lock something away. This mask was no mere ornament. It was a literal key, part of the binding. His candlelight fell upon a carving above the altar. Chiseled deep in the stone was a line of scripture. I saw a star fallen from heaven to earth, and to it was given the key of the abyss. The words sent a jolt through Antonio's soul. He recognized them as an echo of the apocalypse he'd studied in seminary. The star fallen from heaven, a key to the abyss. This vault was a prison, and he had just unlocked it. The bronze mask in his hands, the key of the abyss, must have been crucial to the scene. A sudden chill swept through the chamber. The candle flame guttered, throwing wild shadows. Antonio's breath caught. The air felt charged, alive with a presence lurking beyond the lantern's reach. He set the mask back on the altar. From a shadowed corner of the vault came a soft rustling, like enormous wings unfolding. Antonio spun toward the sound, squinting into the dimness. He saw only shifting darkness, yet he felt an unseen being with mass and intent watching. His skin prickled as he clutched the crucifix at his neck, an overwhelming sense of being judged by an ancient intelligence pressing down. Without warning, the candle's flame surged bright as a torch. In that searing radiance, a tall figure appeared before the altar, wings outstretched to fill the chamber. Its form shimmered, not entirely of this world. Antonio's eyes brimmed with tears, a soft cry escaping his lips, whether of terror or awe, he couldn't tell. The radiant figure itself was the source of the light. Though humanoid in outline, no clear face was visible within the white gold glow, save for two eyes like smoldering embers. Antonio's faith and fear warred within him as he prayed silently for guidance. Who are you?" he managed to whisper. For a long moment, the being did not reply. Then an answer blossomed in his mind, not as thunder, but as a gentle sorrow-laced thought. "I was one of the watchers appointed to guide mankind at the dawn of your race. For my compassion, I was cast out and chained beneath this holy city you call Rome." Antonio blinked. Watchers? He recalled forbidden apocrypha of the fallen angels in Noah's time. An angel of the Lord, one of the watchers, he breathed, barely believing. The being's aura pulsed with melancholic affirmation. Watcher, fallen angel, the titles you give us mean little now. Tears streaked Antonio's cheeks. This angel's story, if true, reframed biblical events in a disturbing light. His lifelong certainties quaked. "You could be deceiving me," Antonio whispered. "Perhaps you are a devil in an angel's guise, testing my faith." Even as he spoke, the words felt hollow. There was too much sorrow and truth in what he had heard. A low, gentle laugh echoed off the stone walls, a sound devoid of joy. "You are wise to be cautious," the voice conceded. "I have had ages to reflect. If sharing knowledge was my sin, perhaps I sin even now by speaking these truths." The great angel seemed to study him. Then it asked softly, "Tell me, Antonio, do you believe your church serves the light as purely as it claims? So, why keep such secrets buried? Why punish those who yearn to uplift your kind?" Antonio had no answer. He felt the foundations of his world trembling. The angel slowly extended a glowing hand. In it lay the bronze mask, the key of the abyss which Antonio had left on the altar. Somehow the angel now held it, offering it back to him. Antonio hesitated, then gently took the mask. "What would you have me do?" he whispered, his voice cracking. The question brimmed with dread and yearning. He knew what the angel desired, freedom. But to free a fallen angel, it was unthinkable. Yet, how could he condemn this being to eternal bondage? Before the angel could answer, distant voices and footfalls echoed from the passage outside. Vivia's heart seized in alarm. Urgent shouts and torchlight flickered down the corridor. The Vatican's secret guardians were coming. In that panicked moment, one desperate resolve crystallized in his mind. He must not let them destroy this angel before he learned the full truth. "Hide!" Antonio hissed, voice tight, shoving the mask into his robes. The angel inclined its head. Once its blazing form began to dim, dissolving into the darkness like mist. In seconds, the vault was empty, save for Antonio and shadows. Antonio spun around just as the stone door was flung wide. A half-dozen figures spilled in, Cardinal Salvati at the front, flanked by Swiss guards and a hooded monk. Their torches bathed the chamber in a harsh glow. "What is the meaning of this?" Salvati thundered, taking in the disturbed altar, the still sputtering candle, the open mask box. His eyes fell on Antonio, who stood frozen in the center of the vault. "Father Antonio," the cardinal whispered, his voice low and furious. "What have you done?" Antonio's lips moved, but no sound came. Two guards seized his arms. Salvati's face was contorted with a mix of rage and dread. "You foolish boy," he hissed. "By the authority of the Holy See, I am placing you under arrest. We will cleanse this blasphemous vault, and then you will answer for your heresy, Father." Antonio was dragged through a maze of torchlit corridors, deep into the Vatican's undercroft, beneath even the known grottos. They emerged into a narrow stone chapel, hidden far below the Basilica. Flickering oil lamps cast elongated shadows on walls inscribed with Latin exorcisms and Solomonic seals. On a central dais lay the heavy doorstone Antonio had opened, pried from its hinges to serve in a binding ritual. "We are going to fix your mistake, Father," Salvati said, his eyes cold. "That creature's very existence is a blasphemy. It was imprisoned under seal and sacrament for good reason." As the exorcists began their sonorous Latin chant, a door, spiritus nequissim reverta in abyssum, a sudden gust extinguished several lamps. The temperature plummeted. Antonio's skin prickled. Something had answered the summons. He felt the bronze doorstone on the dais tremble. Over the chorus, Salvati shouted, "Hold fast. Continue." Antonio realized with a jolt that the bronze mask, the key, was still tucked under his robe. In their haste, none had searched him thoroughly. The chapel walls vibrated. The chanting turned frenzied. Another lamp shattered. A low, resonant rumble came from beyond the dais, not born of any human throat. Antonio's heart surged. He felt Sariel's presence swirling like a gathering storm. Resisting the rite, the familiar voice whispered directly in his mind. He clutched the mask tighter beneath his robes. The moment of decision had come. The church would intune the truth once more, unless he stopped them. With a trembling breath, Antonio made his choice. He yanked the bronze mask free and, with a cry, sprinted onto the dais. "No!" Monsignor Belli shouted, breaking off his chant. But Antonio was already slamming the key of the abyss against the carved cross, of the doorstone. A thunderous crack split the air. Blinding white light spiderwebbed across the stone. The doorstone cleaved cleanly in two, with a sound like a giant gong. Antonio was hurled backward by a shockwave. He hit the floor hard. For an instant, all was silent. Then the earth itself shuddered. The split doorstone collapsed off the dais, revealing a jagged black fissure in the floor. The sulphurous reek wafted out as thick smoke belched up, darkening the chapel. Cardinal Salvati stumbled back, crossing himself in horror. "Antonio, what have you done?" he screamed, or at the abyss now yawning open. From the swirling smoke, two pinpoints of feral light flared. A massive shape rose from below, unfolding great wings that seemed to blot out the remaining lamplight. Sariel emerged in its full splendor, no longer dimmed. Its presence filled the chamber. "Holy Mother, preserve us!" One guard whimpered, dropping his rifle as he fell to his knees. Freed from its bonds, the angel towered above them, eyes blazing like twin suns. Broken shackles dangled from its wrists. An eternal second, no one moved. Then, a single terrifying syllable of judgment resonated in the air, and in their minds a run. The chapel erupted into chaos. The Swiss guards abandoned their posts and bolted for the tunnel, terror overcoming training. Two of the monks collapsed. Cardinal Salvati remained rooted, face a mask of awe and despair as the angel's burning gaze fell upon him. Antonio, half blinded by Sariel's radiance and choked by acrid smoke, saw Sariel advance one step towards Salvati. The cardinal trembled, mouthing silent prayers. Sariel's incandescent form loomed, then a flash of otherworldly lightning crackled forth, striking the cardinal. Salvati crumpled without a sound. "Sariel," Antonio rasped, unsure if he begged for restraint or offered thanks. Through the thinning smoke, Sariel turned to him. In the angel's blazing eyes, the ember gentleness had returned, tempered with profound sorrow. Antonio realized he was still clutching the bronze mask. It had grown hot, its purpose fulfilled. The stone ceiling groaned ominously. Fine dust rained down as another tremor rumbled likely the basilica overhead, suffering the consequences of the abyss open below. Sariel stepped nearer, lowering its terrible brightness. The angel inclined its head in a gesture, almost like gratitude. "You are free," Antonio whispered. In the recesses of his mind, the angel's voice came tenderly. "I will not forget you, Antonio. You have unbound more than my chains this night. You have shaken the towers of falsehood." Before Antonio could reply, the ground convulsed violently. High above, something massive crashed, perhaps part of St. Peter's dome itself. Sariel's head snapped upward. The angel looked back to Antonio one last time. "Leave this place. The hour of woe has come," it warned, the thought heavy with both regret and urgency. Then, with a powerful beat of its wings, Sariel launched upward. Its blazing form hurtled into the fissure in the chapel floor, vanishing into the swirling darkness beyond. For a heartbeat, Antonio stood alone in the ruined chapel, stunned. The bronze mask slipped from his fingers, clanging away into the pit. A monstrous howl echoed up from deep below, the sound of something else stirring in the abyss, now that its keeper was gone. Antonio's survival instinct kicked in. He turned and fled into the passage, limping on unsteady legs as the undercroft around him quaked. He ascended through twisting corridors, emerging from a hidden door onto the floor of St. Peter's Basilica's nave. St. Peter's was in chaos. Tourists and clergy alike were running, shouting. Swirling dust, Antonio saw a jagged crack rupturing the marble floor near the high altar. Sunlight speared through new holes in the dome far above. Sirens wailed from St. Peter's Square outside. Amidst the panic, Antonio stood soot-stained and shaking. He alone understood the enormity of what had occurred. As terrified priests clutched rosaries and sobbing pilgrims huddled together, Antonio knew a greater terror loomed unseen, for Sariel was free in the world now, and the abyss beneath had been opened. The first woe had come and passed. Greater horrors would soon follow.